Toi aussi. C'est pas quand tu fais regarder la cravate.
Usually at my Strasbourg time. No, but the group's just finished.
Merci, ça fait ça fait pas.
So that would be the stop the interrupted. It's 20. So it's 20. What instrument? Okay. Keyboard. Right to the group chat. Yes, just waiting. To make sure. Moi, je trouve qu'on devrait mettre des
Morning.
Meetings. The sitting is open. I remind members that in order to be registered for the sitting, you should insert your badge when you take the seat and keep it inserted for at least 10 minutes. You should also insert your badge in order to speak or vote. To request the floor, please press the request button. I also remind members of the Assembly agreed on Monday that the speaking time in all debates today will be 3 minutes for the spokesperson on behalf of political groups and 2 minutes for all other speakers. The first item of business this morning is the debate on the report titled Eliminating Gender Stereotypes in Media, document 16418, presented by Mrs. Yevgenia Kravchuk on behalf of the Equality and Non-Discrimination Committee. We will hear from Mr. Benjamin Dalle, who will present an option on behalf of the Committee on Culture, Science, Education and Media, which is enshrined in document 16419. In order to finish by 11:25 a.m., I will interrupt the list of speakers at about 11 o'clock. Yevgenia, that's a different information as before. I will interrupt the list of speakers about 11 o'clock to allow time for the reply and to vote. And I now call Mrs. Kravchuk as rapporteur. You have 7 minutes now and 3 minutes at the end of the debate. Please, Yevgenia.
Thank you, dear Petra. Dear colleagues, well, first of all, I would like to congratulate all of the women parliamentarians with the International Day of Women in Diplomacy, which is celebrated today. The parliamentary diplomacy, I think, is a very important part of it. You represent people, the voters, but also you work hard in the interparliamentary assemblies and also in the parliament-to-parliament cooperation. So I'm happy to present here the outcome of almost 2 years of work we did in the Committee on Equality and Non-Discrimination. But also I would like to thank my colleague Benjamin from the Cultural Committee for his report on opinion, because it gives very useful inputs into the and useful scope from another perspective, from the perspective of media. I would like also to mark that today you will hear Emma Wedner, who is chairperson of the Council on Youth. And I'm really happy that among different reports on this session and more, the Youth Council had chosen my report to contribute. I also would like to thank the Irish delegation for the organizing of the fact-finding mission to Dublin. It was very fruitful, and a lot of insights to the report came from this visit. So the key message of my report and the resolution that we debate today is clear from the very title. It's about eliminating gender stereotypes. So what is gender stereotypes? So this is basically the assumptions about the characteristics and roles traditionally attributed to women and men. And it concerns the private life, it concerns the family life, it concerns the careers, professional lives. You know, careers could be viewed as either typically masculine or feminine. For example, yesterday we had a great exchange with Ukrainian veterans, and we had, out of 3 speakers, 2 women veterans. But also in public life, including politics. And you probably can see in your parliaments or your governments this division of the roles or portfolios that are usually distributed to men or women. And, you know, it affects both female and males, and it could have harmful consequences for society as a whole. And I really wish to make this point clear in the draft resolution and underline that boys and men are also harmed by stereotypes of male behavior and social roles to which they may feel intense pressure to conform, you know, like boys don't cry. Again, the example from Ukraine, we have a lot of soldiers in the military, and because, you know, it's so masculine, they, you know, might feel awkward seeking, for example, psychiatrical help, because, you know, men don't cry. Of course, we can say that the progress remains limited and far too slow, but I want to underline that both media and social media can play as negative role as a positive role to setting the good examples, encouraging, for example, having equal participation of experts, female and male, in political debates, speakers, but also the very important thing is not just on screen, but off screen, having equal participation in editorial boards, in actually choosing who you would like to invite to the TV show, for example. But in social media, it's getting more and more toxic. And you would see very dangerous phenomena. And the example, as you probably know, the manosphere, you know, in the social media, and Andrew Tate, who is, you know, very toxic, feeding the audience with sexist, revolting messages about women. Another social media phenomena, the trad wives, traditional wives. And again, you know, it has to be the choice of a woman. I like to cook, you know, I like to cook. It's okay. But it's not something that only characterizes me as the woman, that, you know, it has to be the place in the kitchen. I would like to call in the resolution for legislators and policymakers to engage in dialogue and cooperation with media actors, while at the same time regulating their activities where necessary. And also, I would like to mention that during the preparation on this report, we were a lot engaged with the NGOs in different countries, in Ireland again, very good NGOs that we worked with. I worked with Ukrainian NGO, Women in Media, and if you ask your NGOs in your respective countries, I bet they do have some interesting data that could provide you information. For example, you know, how much the women parliamentarians are appearing on the TV shows, for example. What is the percentage of female in top management of media in the decision making, and then you would make your own conclusions. So thank you for your attention to this matter. I count on your support, and I would like to thank for all who registered to speak. Not all of you will be able, because we're a bit short of time, but please send your speech at least to be on the website. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yevgenia. I now call Mr. Dalle for the opinion from the Committee on Culture, Science, Education and Media. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Dear colleagues, I would like to congratulate Ms. Yevgenia Kravchuk for an excellent report. The Culture Committee adopted 10 amendments to this report at its meeting in Istanbul, and allow me to highlight 3 key priorities reflected in these amendments. First, it is important to address not only the representation of women on screen, but also the role of women behind the scenes in the production of television series and films. Female directors, producers and screenwriters often play a decisive role in ensuring more balanced representation, more diverse perspectives and richer storylines. We therefore should encourage production companies, broadcasters and public authorities to promote greater gender balance, not only among actors and presenters, but also in key creative and managerial positions. Second, I would like to highlight more explicitly the intersection between gender and age. Too often, women face reduced opportunities as they grow older, for example, as presenters, journalists, or leading on-screen figures, whereas this tends to be far less the case for men. This imbalance contributes to the invisibility of older women in public life and reinforces harmful stereotypes linking women's value primarily to youth and appearance. Finally, the Culture Committee stresses the positive role of the media by promoting mutual respect, equal opportunities, social cohesion, and diverse role models for younger generations. Policies should safeguard freedom of expression, media freedom, artistic freedom, and pluralism. You will not be surprised that that was one of the priorities of our Culture Committee. The objective should not be to prescribe content or to impose interdictions, but to encourage a media environment that reflects the diversity and equality of our democratic societies. Taken together, these amendments aim to promote a media environment that is more inclusive, more representative, and ultimately more democratic. I therefore invite you to support both our amendments of the Culture Committee and Ms. Kravchuk's excellent report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dalle. I now call first on behalf of UL, Janina Böttger.
Thank you very much. I will speak in German. Ja, verehrte Kolleginnen und Kollegen, ich danke der Berichterstatterin für ihren Bericht und begrüße die Stellungnahme des Ausschusses ausdrücklich. Dieser Bericht erinnert uns daran, dass die Bilder der Geschlechter, die entstehen nicht nur in den Köpfen, sondern sie werden auch von Medien gemacht und in digitalen Räumen reproduziert und politisch verstärkt. Das heißt, Medien haben Macht. Sie können sichtbar machen, sie können aufklären und verbinden, aber sie können auch zuspitzen, vereinfachen und Konflikte schüren, weil Aufmerksamkeit heute oft die wichtigste Währung ist. Deshalb brauchen wir eine ernsthafte Debatte über Medien, Plattformen und Bildung. Medienkompetenz und das generationsübergreifend bedeutet heute, zu erkennen, wie Algorithmen funktionieren. Besonders klar müssen wir auch bei sexualisierter Gewalt sein. Die digitale Welt darf kein Raum sein, in dem Frauen und Mädchen zu Objekten gemacht werden. Und Europa muss hier zeigen, dass es handlungsfähig ist. Der Digital Service Act ist ein wichtiger Schritt. Plattformen müssen Verantwortung übernehmen, aber Recht muss auch durchgesetzt werden. Schutz darf eben nicht nur auf dem Papier existieren. Und wir müssen über die tieferen Ursachen sprechen. Geschlechterbilder entstehen nicht nur durch die Medien, sie entstehen durch gesellschaftliche und wirtschaftliche Verhältnisse. Unsere linke Perspektive bedeutet, die Freiheit eines Menschen hängt davon ab, ob er selbstbestimmt leben kann. Eine gerechte Gesellschaft beginnt deshalb mit Würde, Eigenständigkeit und Sicherheit für Frauen, für Männer, für Familien und Kinder. Und die Unabhängigkeit einer Frau hängt daran, ob sie wirtschaftlich unabhängig sein kann, ob Sorgearbeit gerecht verteilt ist, ob Familien Sicherheit haben. Gleichzeitig dürfen wir nicht ignorieren, dass der aktuelle Rollback bei den Geschlechterbildern mit Krise verbunden ist. Mit einer Krise der Arbeit, mit Krieg, mit Verlust von sozialer Sicherheit. Denn wir leben in Zeiten voller neuer Ungewissheiten. Und wenn viele Menschen das Gefühl haben, Kontrolle zu verlieren, entstehen Kämpfe um Anerkennung. Manche sehnen sich nach einfachen Antworten, manche suchen vermeintliche Stärke in alten Rollenbildern. Aber die alten Zeiten waren keine guten. Sie waren engstirnig, oft brutal und herabsetzend. Wir Frauen, Transpersonen, Schwule und Lesben wollen deshalb nie mehr in alte Zeiten zurück. Und junge Männer brauchen keine falschen Versprechen von Stärke und Dominanz. Wir alle brauchen Perspektiven, sichere Arbeit, Anerkennung und die Möglichkeit, ein gutes Leben aufzubauen. Vielen Dank.
Herzlichen Dank. The next on my speaking list is Biserra Konstantinovska-Stochevskaya on behalf of SOC.
Thank you, Madam President. Gender stereotypes in the media are generalized and often misleading representations of individuals based on socially constructed expectations of gender. These stereotypes significantly influence public attitudes, they shape cultural norms and contribute to the perpetuation of gender inequality. That is why eliminating gender stereotypes in the media is a crucial step towards fostering a more inclusive and equitable society. Traditionally, media outlets have portrayed women and men in limited and stereotypical roles. Women are frequently depicted as caregivers, homemakers, or individuals whose value is closely associated with physical appearance and emotional sensitivity. In contrast, men are often represented as authoritative, ambitious, and financially successful figures. Such portrayals reinforce conventional gender norms and restrict individuals' perception of their potential roles and capabilities. The persistence of these stereotypes can have significant social consequences. Research suggests that repeated exposure to stereotypical media representations influences children's career aspiration, self-esteem, and understanding of gender roles. Young girls may be discouraged from pursuing careers in science, technology, engineering, mathematics, while boys may feel pressured to conform to ideals of strength and emotional restraint. Consequently, gender stereotypes can limit personal development and reinforce systematic inequalities. The elimination of gender stereotypes in media is essential for promoting gender equality and social justice. Through accurate, diverse, and inclusive representations, the media can challenge discriminatory norms, encourage equal opportunities, and contribute to the development of a more progressive society. That is why I call on everyone here to support this report. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. I now call Andrea Eder-Kitzstahler on behalf of EPP.
Guten Morgen alle und sehr geehrte Frau Präsidentin. Warum werden immer noch so viele Frauen Friseurinnen statt Technikerinnen? Warum gibt es so wenige Verteidigungsministerinnen und Innenministerinnen? Warum müssen Männer immer stark sein? Wie eine Frau zu leben hat, was ein richtiger Mann zu tun hat, wird uns täglich präsentiert. In den traditionellen öffentlichen Medien, Presse, Rundfunk, Fernsehen, aber auch in den modernen Medien wie Online-Plattformen und Social Medias. KI-beeinflusste Berichte verstärken diese Klischees und produzieren auch Unwahrheiten. Wir kennen diese sogenannten Deepfakes. Sie alle vermitteln eine Botschaft, die speziell uns Frauen 2026 nicht gerecht werden und uns im Privatleben und in der Öffentlichkeit immer wieder einschränken wollen. Und die Popularität von den sogenannten Trade Wives in den sozialen Medien, die ein idealisiertes, traditionelles Image häuslicher Weiblichkeit porträtieren, ist für mich ein klares Beispiel dafür. Verstehen Sie mich nicht falsch. Wir brauchen ein reelles Bild von Familie, positiv, unterstützend, fördern. Wir als IPP fördern und unterstützen Familien. Wir stehen dafür, aber nicht auf diese Art und Weise. Ja? Und bei den Männern erzeugen diese Klischees, besonders bei den Jungen, diese schädliche Maskulinität mit all ihren Auswirkungen. Und wir brauchen daher eine Überwindung von diesen geschlechterspezifischen Stereotypen. Statt Frauen auf Fürsorge und Aussehen zu reduzieren und Männer als unverwundbare Macher zu inszenieren, braucht es komplexe Figuren, vielfältige Körperbilder und Rollen, die Normen hinterfragen, redaktionelle Leitlinien, Diversität im Team, geschlechterspezifische Sprache sowie Datenchecks gegen verzerrte Darstellungen und zentrale Hebeln. Und natürlich auch Medienkompetenz beim Publikum, das stärkt die Nachfrage nach differenzierten Inhalten. Es freut mich sehr, dass wir durch diesen vorliegenden Bericht das Bewusstsein für diese Problematik in den Medien stärken, aufklären und konkrete Maßnahmen auflisten, um gegenzusteuern. Denn Medien können und müssen bei der Überwindung von Klischees eine positive Rolle spielen. Und mir war es ganz wichtig, gerade als ältere Frau, dass wir im Bericht auf die Situationen von älteren Frauen in Werbung und öffentlichen Medien hinweisen. Denn derzeit ist es so, liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen, dass ältere Frauen einfach verschwinden von den Bildschirmen. Sie werden nicht weiter beschäftigt oder werden auch nicht mehr abgebildet. Auch das gehört aufgezeigt, geändert und abgestellt. Vielen Dank dir, liebe Evgenia, und allen, die in diesem Bericht beigetragen haben, dass wir ein Stück weiterkommen. Wir haben diese Arbeit ja auch im Ausschuss sehr intensiv diskutiert und gewürdigt, und ich bitte Sie alle, diesen Bericht zu unterstützen.
Herzlichen Dank. I now call Malte Kaufmann on behalf of ECPA, please.
Ja, Frau Präsidentin, meine sehr verehrten Damen und Herren, liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen! Ich muss dem, was meine Vorrednerin gerade gesagt hat, Frau Eder-Gitschtaler aus Österreich, vehement widersprechen. Also ich finde das gerade nicht so, dass Frauen und Männer bestimmte Berufe ausüben oder lernen, weil sie das irgendwie in den Medien gesehen haben, sondern es ist genau umgekehrt. Die Medien bilden einfach die Lebenswirklichkeit ab, die wir hier in Europa haben. Und deswegen wird zum Beispiel auch in den Medien, in Filmen, in Serien eben gezeigt, dass bei den Männern typische Männerberufe einfach ausgeübt werden. Und wenn Sie die Zahlen sich anschauen, dann werden Sie feststellen, dass bei Maurern, bei Metallbauern, bei Dachdeckern, bei Elektronikern jeweils über 95% der dort arbeitenden Menschen eben Männer sind. Und dann gibt es typische Frauenberufe, wie zum Beispiel medizinische Fachangestellte, Verkäuferinnen, Gesundheits- und Pflegeberufe. Und das wollen Mädchen, das wollen junge Frauen auch gerne ausüben. Daran ist nichts Falsches. Und wenn es in den Medien so dargestellt wird, dann ist es überhaupt nicht zu kritisieren. Und deswegen lehnen wir auch diese Resolution vehement ab, weil das ein linksgrünes Umerziehungsprogramm ist. Hier soll Druck ausgeübt werden auf Medien, auf Filmschaffer, dass eben diese Regenbogenfamilien in den Vordergrund gestellt werden und betont werden und die klassische Familie madig gemacht wird, wie Kollegin Kraftschuk ja auch gesagt hat und andere Vorredner schon, dass das irgendwie ein überkommenes Familienmodell wäre, wenn Männer zum Beispiel arbeiten gehen, Frauen sich entscheiden, zu Hause zu sein, für die Familie zu sorgen, kleine Kinder eben nicht gerade gleich abgeben in Kindertagesstätte, sondern liebevolle Mütter sind zu Hause. Das ist etwas, wofür sich Millionen Familien in Europa entscheiden. Und das ist gut so. Und es soll auch in den Medien entsprechend dargestellt werden. Und aus zwei Gründen lehnen wir diese Resolution ab. Erstens mal widerspricht es der Lebenswirklichkeit in Europa, in vielen Ländern. Familien, die aus ihrer Überzeugung, aus ihrem christlichen Verständnis heraus auch sich für ein bestimmtes Familienmodell entscheiden. Und zweitens ist es ein Anschlag auf die Meinungs- und Pressefreiheit. Es soll doch nicht sein, dass wir hier staatlicherseits mit Steuergeldern plötzlich hier Einfluss nehmen mit Erziehungsprogrammen und Gängelung und Beeinflussung, um die Medien in eine bestimmte Richtung zu drücken, zu zwingen, um irgendein ideologisches Programm hier zu propagieren. Liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen, also ich finde das wieder mal so ein Beispiel, wo der Europarat sich in eine falsche Richtung entwickelt. Wir halten die Freiheit hoch, Freiheit statt Bevormundung und Gängelung, und deswegen lehnen wir diese Resolution ab. Dankeschön.
Next on my list is Lucia Blabokova from ALDE.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Dear colleagues, let us face it again. We have a problem. Our daughters, our sisters, our wives, friends, and neighbors are being intimidated, bullied, attacked, and sometimes even killed simply because they are women. Just last Saturday, in a small town of Slovakia, a woman, a mother and a teacher, mother of two, was killed by her husband in front of her two children. This is a terrible tragedy, but it is also a brutal reminder that our societies are still failing to protect women. Violence does not begin with a physical attack. It begins much earlier. It starts with words, with prejudice, with the way women are being portrayed and spoken about. That is why this report is so important. And I would like to sincerely thank Yevgenia for doing a great job on it. Misogyny is on the rise. Women are being threatened, silenced, and told that their place is only in the home, caring for children and serving others. Women are still being told what their lives should look like, and too often those decisions are made for them rather than by them. In this context, the role of the media becomes even more important. The media has the power to shape public opinion, influence attitudes, and reach millions of people. With that power comes responsibility. Information must be communicated wisely and fairly. Gender stereotypes harm everyone. They limit opportunities for women, but they also place harmful expectations on men. Challenging these stereotypes is a responsibility we all share, and we as politicians have a particular role to play. Let me ask you a simple question. What is the representation of women in political debates in the media in your countries? I looked at the situation in my own country, and the numbers are alarming. Among the 5 main political debate programs, the highest share of female participants over the last 3 years was only 13%. In one program, it was on as low as 2%. 2%. That means that only 2 out of every 100 politicians given a voice in the debate were women. This is simply unacceptable. So today, I ask all of you to become advocates for equal opportunities, equal representation in your countries, in your media, in your political parties, because democracy cannot fully represent society if half of the society is barely heard. Thank you.
I thank you very much, and now I call Mrs. Emma Wedner, Chairperson of the Advisory Council on Youth and Vice Chair of the Joint Council on Youth, to speak for 3 minutes. Please, Emma.
Thank you, everyone. Before I walked into this room, I spoke to the Secretary General in our youth event, but before that, I listened to my hype song. Why? Because I fight the very stereotypes that young women in leadership roles feel and experience every single day. So it's to get my spirits up before I do things like this. And it messes with my head, and it's exhausting. And today, as the chairperson of the Advisory Council on Youth, I want to highlight and underline the importance of this report for young people and the specific challenges that we face. Because the gender gap in political views is growing, particularly among young people. And the media stereotypes, they drive it, but the opinions and the views, they're expressed by people, particularly adults, every single day. And young women and gender minorities are particularly affected. We're exposed to hate speech and disinformation campaigns with consequences that erode public support for all of equality overall. And these factors compound, being young and a woman, being a young woman and Roma, or being a young LGBTQ migrant. And these stereotyping narratives are, in fact, harmful for everyone. You mentioned the trad wives, the manosphere, and all of these different aspects. And the media promotes idealized and harmful versions of masculinity and femininity that shape children at a critical age, because it's harder to reverse an echo chamber than it is to talk about it before it happens. On Monday, in this very, very building, the My Voice, My Choice campaign received a prize here for their efforts. And the initiator of this woman, Nika, has spoken very openly about the consequences of being a young woman at the face of a social movement. And that led her to take a step away from public life for months to recover from the impact of the stereotyping of her in the media. And she's not alone, because this report talks about the gray zone where the issue is not addressed as a real problem, but the consequences are really bad. They're vast for young women who it affects their careers, their running for office, or simply the existence in public space, as we saw with the case of Nika. And in this way, this report is super important to be able to advocate for these issues. For me, in the Advisory Council of Youth, in this organization, and in your member states. And the investments in non-formal education and media literacy that some have already mentioned, the organizations that fight for these messages that we do in the Council of Europe, but also in our local realities, are essential. But they must also be matched with the regulation of the algorithms, the AIs, and the advertising, because otherwise we keep asking the people who are exposed to also fix the problem. So to eliminate the harmful gender stereotypes, we need to understand the issue. Thank you, Yevgenia, and everyone who contributed to the report, and put pressure on the right actors. And that's where all of us come in. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Wedner. And now I come to all those, or the other speakers who now have 2 minutes. And the first one on my list is Aysu Bankoglu from Turkey.
Madam President, thank you. Dear colleagues, gender stereotypes remain pervasive in communication across the media landscape. So often, women and girls are portrayed in outdated roles that belong in the past. At the same time, men continue to see their dominance in positions of responsibility reflected and reinforced. These portrayals shape perceptions and expectations in society, of course. Eliminating gender stereotypes in media is essential for creating a more equal and inclusive society. By presenting diverse and realistic representations of all genders, the media can encourage equality, the respectations, and greater opportunities for everyone. From a youth perspective, social media plays a major role in shaping attitudes and self-image. Young people are constantly exposed to content that promotes stereotypical ideas about how boys and girls should look, behave, and succeed. These messages can create pressure to conform to unrealistic standards, leading to low self-esteem, anxiety, and a fear of expressing individuality. This is particularly concerning because young people are among the most active users of these platforms. Gender stereotypes on social media can also discourage young people from pursuing interests, careers, or activities that are seen as unsuitable for their gender. Promoting positive and diverse representations online can help young people develop confidence and embrace their identities. And I would like to praise my colleague and fellow youth reporter Yevina for a report that is both realistic and ambitious, of course. Gender stereotypes are more harmful than we sometimes realize. They limit opportunities, reinforce inequalities, and affect future generations. It is time to strengthen our efforts to challenge and overcome them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I now call on Octavie Modat from Luxembourg.
Vielen Dank, Frau Präsidentin. In der Tat hat meine Delegation mich eigentlich in den falschen zum falschen Punkt eingeschrieben. Das macht aber nichts. Ich möchte nämlich auch ganz gerne hier den Report und außerdem den Rapport pour avis der beiden Kommissionen und der beiden Berichterstatter unterstützen, die, glaube ich, sehr allumfassend dieses Thema beschreiben, denn das ist ein wichtiges Thema. Man würde ja nicht denken, dass heute noch diese traditionellen oder rückwärtsgerichteten Bilder in den Medien zirkulieren würden, aber es wird fast immer stärker und deshalb ist es sehr wichtig, dass hier der Europarat sich dieses Themas annimmt und ich kann die Berichterstatter nur unterstützen. Ich glaube, heutzutage wird auch viel zu viel eine falsche Maskulinität in den Medien vehikuliert und das bringt auch eine große Brutalität sehr oft mit sich, nicht nur gegen Frauen, sondern gegen auch LGBTQI+-Gemeinschaften, sondern auch im ganz Allgemeinen in der Gesellschaft. Deshalb ist es auch sehr wichtig, dass wir Medienkompetenz haben, dass wir auch Ausbildung in den Medien und der Journalisten sehr unterstützen, dass die ausgleichend ist. Zu den Konservativen. Sie spielen das so herab, dieses Problem, und unterstützen damit das kranke Gebaren von Männern, die es normal finden, ihre Frauen zu schinden oder sie auch nur als untergeordnete Wesen anzusehen und zu behandeln. Das ist nicht unserer Gesellschaft angepasst und Sie sollten das nicht unterstützen, denn damit bringen Sie nicht nur Spaltung, sondern Sie bringen große Hetze und Brutalität. Ich unterstütze die beiden Berichte. Danke.
There is a point of order. Mr. Kaufmann.
I just raised my blue card because I want to ask a question to my colleague that just spoke. And I think we all agree that violence and beating up the partner and sexual abuse is totally unacceptable. We all agree on that, and I think if this is portrayed in the media, we should also take legal action. But you also spoke about family models that are from the past and that are overcome and that are traditional. What do you exactly mean by this? Do you mean the classical family like millions live in Europe?
So I think that was a question to Mrs. Modat, and if you want to reply, this blue card system gives the possibility to those who speak on behalf of the group to ask a question to whoever took the floor in the debate. And if you would like to reply to the question, you have also now 30 seconds to reply to the question. If you want, you are not forced to, but yeah, you want to. Please.
Ich habe eigentlich keine Frage gehört, nur eine Bemerkung, und ich bleibe auch bei meinen Bemerkungen und bei meiner Meinung.
Next one is Victoria Diplom from Sweden.
Thank you, Madam President. This report raises a concern that should unite this Assembly, regardless of where we sit, the abuse and intimidation faced by women in political life. The evidence in this report is sobering. Women in politics across our member states face a disproportionate share of online harassment, doxing, and deep fakes designed not to debate their ideas, but to humiliate and silence them. We heard of fabricated sexual content targeting female politicians, of search engines surfacing this material ahead of legitimate news, of Ukrainian journalists deliberately sexualized and discredited by Russian disinformation operations to weaken their voice and their credibility. It is an attack on the basic precondition of democracy, that a woman who stands for office can do so without being targeted by fabricated, degrading content designed to drive her out of public life. We should be unambiguous in our condemnation of this, and equally unambiguous in demanding that platforms act. I support, therefore, this report's call for serious, enforceable transparency from social media companies, clear timelines for removing deep fakes and image-based abuse, real consequences for platforms that drag their feet, and meaningful tools for victims to seek redress. We support stronger protection for women journalists and politicians, particularly those documenting war crimes and corruption, who pay a heightened price for their courage. What we cannot support is turning a report on online abuse into a vehicle for a broader ideological project, one that diagnoses entire societies as patriarchal, casts ordinary family choices as problems to be corrected, and treats traditional values as danger to be managed rather than freedom to be respected. Protecting women from abuse does not require accepting that framework, and this Assembly should not be asked to choose between the two. Thank you.
Thank you, and now Bernadette Coma from Andorra.
Madame la Présidente, chers collègues, je souhaite tout d'abord remercier chaleureusement notre rapporteure, Madame Yevgenia Kravchuk, pour l'excellent travail réalisé sur un sujet qui touche non seulement à l'égalité entre les femmes et hommes, mais aussi au fonctionnement de nos démocraties, de nos sociétés et à l'avenir de nos jeunes. Aujourd'hui, encore, les stéréotypes de genre demeurent omniprésents dans les médias traditionnels et numériques. Ils alimentent les discriminations, limitent les opportunités offertes aux femmes et freinent leur pleine participation à la vie publique, politique, économique et sociale. L'évolution rapide des technologies rend cette question encore plus préoccupante. Les réseaux sociaux offrent de nouvelles possibilités d'expression, mais ils peuvent également amplifier les préjugés, les discours de haine sexiste, le harcèlement en ligne et les deepfakes qui touchent particulièrement les femmes engagées dans la vie politique. Face à ces défis, nous devons agir à travers l'éducation aux médias, la sensibilisation des jeunes, le soutien de la société civile, la responsabilisation des plateformes et une représentation plus équilibrée des femmes dans tous les secteurs. En Andorre, nous sommes pleinement conscients de ces enjeux. Mais même si nous ne disposons pas d'une législation spécifique consacrée aux stéréotypes de genre dans les médias, les dernières années, nous avons renforcé notre cadre juridique en matière d'égalité et de non-discrimination et créé l'Institut andorran des femmes qui joue un rôle essentiel dans la sensibilisation, la formation et la promotion de l'égalité. Actuellement, nous sommes en train de travailler sur la réforme de la loi relative aux droits des enfants et des adolescents afin de mieux encadrer l'environnement numérique et l'utilisation des réseaux sociaux. La prévention est essentielle et elle commence dès le plus jeune âge. Malgré les progrès accomplis, nous partageons pleinement la conviction exprimée dans le rapport. L'égalité réelle ne pourra être atteinte tant que persisteront les stéréotypes qui influencent encore les opportunités et les choix de vie des femmes et des hommes. Merci.
Next one is Francesco Vertucci from Italia.
Grazie Presidente, voglio ringraziare la relatrice per questo lavoro. Gli stereotipi di genere sono uno dei fattori più gravi di diseguaglianza. La rappresentazione della donna come subalterna è ciò che continua a tenere milioni di ragazze e di donne in una condizione di minorità nel lavoro, nel reddito, nel diritto allo studio, nelle relazioni sentimentali, a impedire loro di poter esprimersi, di realizzare la propria vita. È questo un grande tema politico. Gli stereotipi ingannano, distorcono, inquinano il linguaggio, sono anticamera dei discorsi d'odio e delle discriminazioni, non si limitano a fissare le diseguaglianze esistenti, ma le riproducono e le alimentano. Gli stereotipi da secoli sono funzionali alla conservazione e alla perpetuazione di un sistema di potere gerarchico e reazionario, e il modo più forte che abbiamo per rovesciarli, per scardinarli, è innanzitutto una battaglia culturale, educare al rispetto, all'eguaglianza, al consenso, all'autodeterminazione, all'emancipazione da ruoli che hanno stabilito altri. E quindi introdurre in tutte le scuole, sin dalle scuole dell'infanzia, l'educazione affettiva e sentimentale. E allo stesso modo questo vale per i media, dire no alla monetizzazione del corpo della donna, no ad algoritmi che amplificano contenuti misogini e discriminatori, no ad un modello di sfruttamento degli stereotipi su cui lucra molta parte del mercato dei media. Questo circuito va rotto perché ha un costo sociale che è inaccettabile. Il prezzo che paghiamo tutti è fatto di violenza endemica, di una sequenza agghiacciante di femminicidi, e questo è un tema politico e sociale. Dobbiamo capovolgere stereotipi e pregiudizi, sono catene da spezzare, muri da abbattere, perché possono svuotare e uccidere le nostre democrazie. Grazie Presidente.
Thank you very much. I now call Mrs. Nidio from Greece.
Thank you, Madam President, dear colleagues, dear rapporteurs. I would like to speak today about something more subtle than discrimination, because the greatest challenge facing young people today is no longer being told you cannot do this. It is being told every single day what is socially acceptable for them to become. Algorithms have become the invisible editors of our ambitions. Before a teenager enters a classroom, before a student chooses university or a career, they have already consumed thousands of messages about beauty, success, leadership, motherhood, strength, and power. No one explicitly limits their choices, but slowly, invisibly, and repeatedly, expectations are being curated for them. This is the new face of gender stereotypes. Girls are still encouraged to be likable before they are encouraged to be ambitious. And boys are often told that vulnerability is weakness and that strength leaves little room for empathy. In both cases, potential is being limited. And that is why this debate is no longer about media representation alone. It is about who gets to shape human inspiration in the digital age. And I believe we often ask the wrong questions. We ask, how do we protect girls? Instead of, who is designing the digital environments in which all young people grow up? Because if technologies are built without diverse perspective, they will continue to reproduce old inequalities, but in new forms. Our objectives should therefore be ambitious, more ambitious than increasing visibility. And visibility is not enough. Because democracy is not only about who has a seat in the parliament. It is about who silently shapes millions of aspirations before citizens even enter the public sphere. And today, that battle is increasingly being fought online. If we want to have stronger democracies tomorrow, we must start by protecting something much more fragile today, the freedom of every young person to imagine a future unconstrained by gender stereotypes. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next one is José María Sánchez García from Spain. As he doesn't seem to be in the room, I call the next one, which is Xime Grigorian from Armenia. Xime.
Thank you, Madam President. I also want to thank our rapporteur, Evgenia Kravchuk, for this wonderful report. And I can't help myself but note that the remarks that we heard a few minutes ago here, suggesting that the media merely reflects the great reality of predefined roles for men and women, is making this report even more valuable and timely. So once again, thank you, Evgenia, for this report. As parliamentarians, we often focus on laws and institutions, but stereotypes are shaped long before the laws can correct them. And they are shaped by what people see, hear, and consume every day. In recent years, the social media has amplified harmful stereotypes and made hate speech even more visible and more aggressive. Women in politics, journalism, and public life often face attacks that have little to do with their ideas and much more to do with their gender. In Armenia, we also face this phenomenon. Women who are active in public life are not only disproportionately targeted online, but also gender-based insults are very often normalized. At the same time, I see encouraging initiatives by the journalists, civil society organizations, and media projects that highlight women as leaders, entrepreneurs, scientists, and decision makers, rather than confining them to traditional roles. Because stereotypes affect not only women, they affect men and boys as well. They create expectations that everyone must conform to predefined roles and leave little room for individuality and human potential. This is why I particularly welcome the report's emphasis on media literacy and education. Regulation alone cannot solve this issue. We need critical thinking, we need responsible media, and we need positive role models for young generations. Freedom of expression should never be used as an excuse for sexism and dehumanization. And a democratic society is one where diversity of voices is promoted and where everyone can participate in public life with dignity and respect. And I thank you.
Thank you. And I saw Mrs. Blabakova raising her blue card to raise a question. You have 30 seconds.
I have a question to Mr. Kaufmann, because I was surprised about what he said, that there are typically a female and male jobs. So I would like to know, as we are all sitting here, if the job we are doing here is typically female or male. Thank you.
Mr. Kaufmann, if you would like to reply, you have 30 seconds to reply.
The issue that I raised a certain issue of typical jobs where women and men nowadays like to work. And as you see, there are many women also in the parliament elected by the national people, so this is totally fine, but has nothing to do with the issue that I raised. Thank you.
It's fine.
Next on my list is Mr. Ronan Mullen from Ireland.
Thank you very much, Ms. President. I think we need to take as our starting point the fact that countries vary greatly in their approach to these issues, and I have absolutely no doubt that there is much unacceptable sexism and stereotyping in many places. That said, I do find in some ways the report has a lack of peripheral vision that is disappointing, and I would warn against a Faustian pact with the more aggressive side of trans activism, for example, but also the danger of a denialism about certain objective differences between men and women and their tendency to vary in aspirations. Even, for example, in countries like Sweden, considered very advanced, you'll often find that men will gravitate to particular professions and women to others. And we shouldn't be afraid of that, as long as there is the equality of opportunity for people to aspire according to their aptitudes and talents. But sometimes I think there is a lack of trust developing because of the triumph of ideology over truth-seeking. And I'd say we should commit to the truth for the sake of the fight against pornography, for the sake of allowing children to have a childhood where they're not intruded on or sexualized too young, and for the sake of allowing people to search for the truth and to find roles in life that fit their personal aspirations and nature as opposed to other people's ideology for them. stereotypes are always bad because they represent ideology, and ideology is bad. But let's not replace one ideology with another, because there are certain objective realities about the difference between men and women. And I think trans activism in particular denies that and endangers young people in particular. And I was disappointed to see references to that in this report. But of course, any reasonable and good person must accept that there are places where women are denied their proper opportunities in life because of unhealthy and irrational stereotypes about them, and also about a certain aggressive free market approach to media that allows people to say what they want and to consume other people as commodities. And that we should all unite in fighting against.
Thank you. And now Olena Molchanec from Ukraine.
Thank you to Rapporteur Evgenia Kravchuk for this insightful and important document. We have to minimize gender stereotypes in order to create equal societies where everyone can realize their potential. Let me read a few comments I found on social media and a news story about the appointment of the 25-year-old Ukrainian woman to a government position. First, kid, you should be still playing with dolls. What's wrong with your face? My dog also wants to be a minister. There are just a few of thousands of comments. They are degrading and undermine not only the role of women in decision-making, but also that of young people. This shows the intersectional nature of gender stereotypes. They are cruel toward young women. It also highlights a problem with today's media. Behind these accounts lie cruelty and sexism, as well as irresponsibility for offensive comments. That is why I support the resolution recommendations to introduce media literacy programs at all levels of education, alongside age-appropriate sex education. When looking at social media, it is clear that the prevailing view online is that a young woman cannot be successful and cannot achieve heights with her own skills and intelligence. The saddest part is that such comments are written by hundreds of women. We are working to establish a society of equal opportunities. The Ukrainian parliament currently has the highest number of women on its history, and we are working to increase this trend. It is important to support movements that focus on education with the aim of empowering women. And it is important to build societies free of gender stereotypes so that our children never hear, you cannot be a pilot because you are a girl, or you cannot be sad because you are a man. Education and
Thank you very much.
Are the way out.
Thank you very much. The next one on my speaking list is now Mrs. Irena Fertikova-Konieczna from Czechia.
Thank you very much, and I would like to thank Mrs. Kravchuk for this vital report. The impact on social media, and particularly on radicalization, is immense, and we can see it, and the report rightfully refers to it. The digital polarization is systematically used to silence women, especially those who are visible in the public space. Female journalists, especially those who challenge the traditional narratives, are met with gender disinformation. They are not professional critics. They are trying to discredit their work, to ridicule them, to deter them from public life, and to silence them. We are witnessing the toxic culmination of this climate in my country, unfortunately. Just last week, the Czech government effectively killed the ratification of the Istanbul Convention by withdrawing the resolution that was intended to start the process of ratification. This is the direct result of far-right politics that weaponize the gender stereotypes under the guise of protecting traditional values. Furthermore, nowadays, we are also witnessing a direct attack on public service media in the Czech Republic, where proposed funding reform threatens to dismantle independence and subject them to political pressure. This assault on independent journalism is a crucial component of the same populist agenda that uses gender disinformation to undermine political resilience. Where disinformation dominates, human rights are eroded. If we do not protect those on the front line of journalism and public life, this regression will become a new standard across Europe.
Thank you very much. And before I hand over to my colleague Mogens Jensen, as Yevgenia mentioned it in her introduction, I just wanted to remind all women that we will have a Women at Pace meeting at 1:15 in the Blue Restaurant, especially to the International Day on Women in Diplomacy. Thank you. And the next on the speaking list is, and the last one as well, is Mr. Laszlo Torokcsik from Hungary.
Thank you, Madam President. First of all, in fact, it is traditional values that are in danger nowadays. The differences between women and men are determined by nature, chromosomes, biology, and God. This is not a stereotype, but a fact. As long as common sense prevails, these differences are visible to the naked eye. But okay, let's talk about this. The LGBTQ lobby is now the most powerful lobby in the world. That is why LGBTQ propaganda is flooding social media, because the algorithm promotes it, while censorship silences the traditionalist and Christian voices that have the courage to criticize the goals of the LGBTQ movement. Nowadays, it's almost impossible to make a movie that doesn't contain LGBTQ themes. Today, it's becoming increasingly difficult for a young boy to follow the traditional male role model, and it's becoming increasingly difficult for a young girl to follow the traditional female role model. The report expresses concern for the rights of transgender women, but it does not, for example, express concern for those children, those little girls who in many Western countries today must share a restroom with biological males. Contrary to this report, the media today tends to support non-traditional gender roles rather than traditional ones, which is why even the title of this report is impossible to comprehend. The biggest problem with this report, however, is that it once again targets children and focuses on schools while discussing sexual topics. Just as the debate across Europe today is no longer about LGBTQ rights, since those are already granted, but rather about same-sex couples wanting to raise children. Enough is enough. Keep your hands off the children. Thank you.
Thank you, and I must now interrupt the list of speakers and the speeches of members on the speakers list who have been present during the debate but not have been able to speak may be given to the table office for publication in the official report. These speeches must not exceed 400 words, and I remind colleagues that the typewritten text can be submitted electronically, if possible, no later than 4 hours after the list of speakers is interrupted. So now I call on Ms. Kravchuk, Rapporteur, to reply. You have 3 minutes, Yevgenia.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for this debate. It was very interesting, and I think now you understand even more why this report is important and timely. And I want to encourage the young people that are here and were listening to this debate, especially young women, not to be afraid to enter whatever career and life choice you want to do. Not imposing on any traditional jobs, traditional roles, and anything that someone thinks is suitable to you. You have to decide on your own. I have a 12-year-old daughter, and I want her to make her own choices, not to be pressured by status of 100 years old. And I don't want to take more time because we will have a short vote afterwards. But also I want to thank every women politician that, despite the stereotypes, is doing their jobs. I want to thank the journalists. I'm a journalist myself, so I did, I had these double stereotypes during my career choices, and indeed, women politicians and women journalists are
angehen, dann gerät auch das Fundament unserer Demokratie unter Druck. Besonders wichtig ist mir persönlich der Gleichstellungsaspekt. Künstliche Intelligenz ist ja nicht automatisch neutral. Sie lernt aus Daten, gesellschaftlichen Vorurteilen und Ungleichheiten und widerspiegelt sie auch. Werden diese Verzerrungen nicht erkannt und korrigiert, werden bestehende Nachteile reproduziert und verstärkt. Und ich möchte da ganz kurz auf das Arbeitsmarktservice eingehen, weil wir hatten das heute auch schon vorher angesprochen, weil gerade am Arbeitsmarkt sehen wir, wie wichtig Transparenz ist, nämlich wenn automatische Systeme über Chancen auf Beschäftigung und Weiterbildung oder beruflichen Aufstieg entscheiden, müssen wir sicherstellen, dass Frauen nicht aufgrund bestehender Vorurteile in den Daten benachteiligt werden. Deshalb müssen wir Diskriminierung und geschlechterspezifische Verzerrungen in KI-Systeme bekämpfen und Frauen gleichberechtigt an Entwicklungen, Regulierungen, aber auch an Nutzungen dieser Technologien beteiligen. Gleichzeitig gilt aber auch, die wirksamste Antwort auf Desinformation und digitale Manipulation ist nicht Angst vor neuer Technologie, sondern ist Bildung, ist Medienkompetenz, kritisches Denken und aus meiner Sicht eine starke demokratische Kultur. Herzlichen Dank.
Thank you very much. Now we hear Armen Gregorian from Armenia.
Hello. Oh, thank you. Madam President, artificial intelligence does not create the crisis of democracy. It merely amplifies problems that already exist within our democracies. Therefore, the key question is not only how to regulate technology, but also how to preserve human responsibility and political accountability in the age of algorithms. People do not lose trust in democracy because algorithms exist. They lose trust when institutions no longer inspire confidence, when politicians stop offering a credible vision of the future. Over the past decades, we have witnessed a gradual erosion of political culture, replacement of strategic vision by regulations and political wisdom by populism. It is precisely into this vacuum that artificial intelligence enters, magnifying the impact of unresolved democratic deficits. The weaker the leadership, the stronger the influence of algorithms. The poorer the public debate, the easier it becomes to manipulate public opinion. The lower the trust in institutions, the more attractive artificial realities become. And on top of this, the concentration of data, computing power and algorithms by a small number of technology corporations is emerging new centers of power which are not elected by citizens, yet increasingly shape political processes. Dear colleagues, let us remember that history was not shaped by algorithms. History was shaped by people capable of inspiring, uniting, and leading others. Algorithms can analyze preferences, but they cannot assume responsibility. They can process vast amounts of data, but they cannot give society purpose or direction. That is why the future of democracy will depend not only on technological process, but on whether democratic societies can preserve responsible human leadership. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I apologize. I skipped Mr. Theo Bovens from the Netherlands. Sorry.
Sorry, that was not AI, I think. Yeah, sorry. Well, Madam President, dear colleagues, I wrote this text that I'm about to deliver myself. It was not generated by AI, and unfortunately, I cannot prove this, because so many texts of mine are now circulating the internet that ChatGPT could easily have turned them into a relevant contribution. That would have saved me a lot of time and effort, but I would have undermined the essence of today's topic. For democracy begins with the autonomous independence of the free citizen, who decides for himself both his opinion and how he wishes to see it represented. Democracy can function only if the free citizen forms his opinion on the basis of facts. And the search for truth, for authenticity, is therefore a democratic duty. This report is an important contribution to our understanding of the advantages and disadvantages of AI for democratic decision-making. And the concerns are not imaginary. Can I, as a citizen, still rely on information to form my opinion? Where does information come from? Do I see everything? Can I still safely participate in the democratic process? And can I trust that this process will lead to sound decisions? In the same week that I read Mrs. Bergamini's report, Pope Leo published his encyclical Magnificat Humanitas. And I do not know whether His Holiness had read our report, but his analysis is remarkably similar. He too considers truth the basis of democracy. And he speaks of every human being as a unique person with a unique face. That's why I advocate protecting every human personality. If, for example, my face is legally protected, there is a basis to challenge the unauthorized use of my face, of my own personality. Much attention is paid to informing and warning older generations, and my plea is to give equal attention to younger generations who are growing up in a digital information society already dominated by AI. Finally, may I ask the rapporteur to forward this report to the Vatican, once adopted with my support, of course, together with greetings from us all. Thank you.
Thank you. And next one is Roland Reno-Büchel from Switzerland.
Geschätzte Frau Präsidentin, geschätzte Kolleginnen und Kollegen, ich bin als Politiker, bildlich gesprochen, wahrscheinlich einer der letzten Mohikaner. Ich bin auf den sozialen Medien zu 100% inaktiv und KI benutze ich höchstwahrscheinlich weniger als die allermeisten hier im Saal. Nun zum Bericht. Er beinhaltet durchaus gute Elemente. Nur geht er von einer Annahme aus, die heute, und ich sage leider, zum politischen Konsens geworden ist, nämlich, dass künstliche Intelligenz eine Bedrohung für die Demokratie sei, vor welcher wir unsere Bürger zu schützen hätten. Geschätzte Damen und Herren, geschätzte Kolleginnen und Kollegen, seien wir doch nicht so ängstlich. Noch jede größere technologische Innovation hat Ängste ausgelöst. Der Buchdruck, das Radio, das Fernsehen, das Internet wurden jeweils als Gefahr für die öffentliche Ordnung und den demokratischen Diskurs angesehen. Doch sie haben unsere Gesellschaften allesamt offener, informierter und vor allem demokratischer gemacht. Natürlich kann KI missbraucht werden. Manipulation und Deepfakes sind dabei reale Herausforderungen und sie sind nicht die einzigen. Nur liegt die Gefahr für die Demokratie nicht vielmehr darin, dass wir aus Angst vor Innovation Regeln schaffen, die kein Mensch einhalten kann. Ich sage bewusst, kein Mensch einhalten kann. Demokratie lebt nicht nur von Sicherheit, sie lebt auch und vor allem von Freiheit, Wettbewerb und Offenheit. Vor allem aber lebt sie vom Vertrauen in die Urteilsfähigkeit der Bürger und der Kraft von uns Politikern, Kritik von den Bürgern auszuhalten. Auch deshalb sollten wir nicht versuchen, jede denkbare Störung, zum Beispiel durch KI, präventiv zu verhindern. Unser Ziel sollte nicht sein, die Demokratie vor der Zukunft zu schützen. Unser Ziel sollte sein, unsere Demokratien so stark zu machen, dass sie die Zukunft gestalten können. Besten Dank.
Thank you very much. And next one is Irena Ferčíková from Czechia.
I hope, yeah. Thank you, Madam Rapporteur Bergamini, for your vital report. As of May 2026, we have crossed a chilling threshold where research from Graphite confirmed that AI-generated content is now overweights the content created by humans. While we can expect that digital content will be synthetic by 90% in the near future. Furthermore, research published by journal Science this year revealed that we are no longer facing simple bots, but sophisticated AI swarms designed to create a synthetic AI-powered crowd a coordinating illusion of majority opinion that marginalizes real people and destroys our shared reality that is necessary for democracy to function. We must reject dangerous free speech fetishism that grants machine-driven lies the same protections as human speech, because rights are inherently human and belong to us, to human beings, not to autonomous algorithms that threaten to silence us. In its democratic core, freedom of expression does not only mean the freedom to express oneself, but also the right to be heard, which becomes particularly impossible in an environment dominated by synthetic crowd of bots and AI swarms. The fact that 3 or 4 years after the emergence of large language models, the volume of the artificially generated content has exceeded the human content makes the protection of authentic human expression from the algorithmic crowd a human right and imperative for our time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I call Mrs. Ivanka Vasilevska from North Macedonia.
Thank you, Madam President. Artificial intelligence is one of the most important technological developments of our time. It has the potential to transform our societies by helping governments make better decisions, encourage greater citizen participation, and provide more equal access to opportunities. However, with these opportunities come significant challenges. AI can also be used, as we often witness, to spread disinformation, manipulate public opinion, and interfere with democratic elections. These risks could undermine trust in democratic institutions and weaken fundamental human rights. This is why innovation must go hand in hand with responsibility. Governments, technology companies, researchers, and civil society all have a shared responsibility to ensure that AI is transparent, fair, and human-centered. The Council of Europe Framework Convention on Artificial Intelligence and Human Rights, Democracy and the Rule of Law reflects a strong commitment to ensuring that AI serves humanity while upholding common fundamental values. I can proudly say that my country has signed this world's first legally binding treaty on artificial intelligence on 8th of May 2026, becoming one of the signatories to this landmark treaty. We as a country remain dedicated to advancing responsible and ethical AI development, and we look forward to completing the ratification process in the near future. In conclusion, artificial intelligence is not good or bad on its own. What matters is how we develop, regulate, and use it. If we use AI responsibly, with transparency, fairness, and respect for human rights, it can improve our lives and strengthen democracy. The choices we make today will shape how AI affects future generations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The next one on my list is Mr. Lőrinc Nakcsar from Hungary, but I think he is not in the room. That seems to be so. So we come to Lise Selnes from Norway.
Thank you, dear President, dear colleagues. The introduction of artificial intelligence has been compared to the Industrial Revolution. It is fundamentally changing our society. Automating time-consuming processes is enabling many workers to do more in less time. Some jobs will be redundant. Transitions can be challenging and for many even painful, but change is necessary for development. However, we must use our new tools wisely. Education is the core of our democracies. Without education, children and youth are unable to participate fully in our democracies. How AI is changing education cannot be ignored. Critical thinking and creativity are human abilities and assets. They cannot be replaced by AI. We must create educational environments that fosters these skills, but I'm worried that AI in educational institutions is doing the opposite. A recent report concluding that a quarter of Norwegian high school students don't have basic knowledge of democracy. They're not interested in democracy. They don't participate in democracy. Their lack of knowledge of basic principles of democracy and rule of law make them less capable of identifying threats to democracy and tendencies of authoritarianism. They rely on social media and algorithms for learning about the world. In the resolution, our rapporteur mentions how using AI can lead to lower human cognitive standards. It might also lead to lower human cognitive capabilities. If you from an early age use AI to write your essays and produce your presentation, if you rely on AI to provide you with news and historical context or your speech in this assembly, you are not using your brain to think and reflect. To use AI in a good way, you need to have developed these skills. And we need to work systematically in meeting this, and then I was very, very impressed by the work they do in Estonia, so thank you. We need a systematical approach for our students. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next one is Ricardo Carvalho from Portugal.
Thank you, Madam President. Dear colleagues, I would like to thank the reporter for the work carried out on this important report. Artificial intelligence is transforming our societies, our economies, our democracies. It offers extraordinary opportunities for innovation, growth, and better public services. At the same time, it raises new challenges that democratic institutions cannot ignore. The question before us is not whether we should embrace innovation, we should. The real challenge is ensuring that technology progress strengthens democracy rather than undermines it. In recent years, democratic societies have faced increasing pressure from foreign interference, online manipulation, and coordinated disinformation campaigns. AI has the potential to make these threats more sophisticated and more difficult to detect. That is why transparency, accountability, and meaningful human oversight are essential. Citizens must have confidence that new technologies operate within a framework that respects democracy, principles, fundamental rights, and the rule of law. At the same time, we should avoid unnecessary barriers that could limit innovation and Europe's competitiveness. Europe must demonstrate that it is possible to lead in innovation while remaining faithful to the principles of democracy, human dignity, freedom, and rule of law. I therefore welcome the balanced approach of this report. It recognizes both the opportunities and the risks associated with artificial intelligence and seeks to ensure that technology development remains at the service of people and democratic institutions. The answer to the challenge posed by artificial intelligence is not fear. It is democratic resilience, strong institutions, and responsibility innovation. And let me conclude with a practical example of the subject we are debating today. This intervention was prepared with the assistance of artificial intelligence. However, the ideas, the responsibility, and democratic accountability behind it remain entirely mine. There is precisely the balance we should strive for: technology serving people, not replacing them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I now call Madame Fresco Rolfo from Monaco.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Chers collègues, Big Brother is watching you. Lorsque George Orwell écrivait ces mots dans son œuvre en 1984, il imaginait un pouvoir qui nous regarde, qui nous surveille et qui nous contrôle. Cet univers dystopique qui nous paraissait jusque-là lointain nous paraît aujourd'hui plus que jamais éloquent. Avec l'intelligence artificielle, Big Brother ne se contente plus de regarder, il collecte, il stocke et analyse. Les systèmes d'intelligence artificielle reposent sur de vastes ensembles de données. Ces données servent à les entraîner, à les nourrir et à les perfectionner. Seulement, ces données peuvent être nos données, nos visages, nos déplacements, nos opinions et même nos préférences pour nos prochaines consommations. Autrement dit, nous devenons la matière première de la machine. Mise au profit du bien commun, l'intelligence artificielle peut renforcer nos systèmes démocratiques. Parallèlement, entre de mauvaises mains, elle devient un outil de surveillance de masse, de police prédictive, de notation de risques, de notation sociale, voire de censure des opinions politiques. Je tiens à souligner que lorsque le citoyen se sait observé, il hésite. Lorsqu'il se sait classé, il se retient. Et lorsqu'il se sait ciblé, il se tait. C'est ainsi que la surveillance produit l'autocensure et la crainte. L'intelligence artificielle peut avoir un effet dissuasif sur l'activisme de la société civile et la participation citoyenne. Mais le danger ne s'arrête pas là, car ces données personnelles peuvent permettre la création de fausses identités ou encore de deepfakes et les médias synthétiques qui, grâce à une vidéo, une image, une voix, peuvent mentir, tromper, détruire une réputation, un individu et même manipuler une élection. Ces systèmes d'intelligence artificielle sont par ailleurs rarement neutres. Ils héritent souvent de biais de société dans lesquels ils sont construits et déployés. Et c'est pour l'ensemble de ces raisons que notre responsabilité est immense. L'intelligence artificielle peut renforcer la démocratie, le rapport le souligne justement, mais seulement sous contrôle démocratique avec transparence, responsabilité et respect de la dignité humaine. Big Brother, regardez, l'IA quant à elle ne se limite pas de regarder, dès lors il nous revient de fixer des limites.
Thank you. The next one is Edith Estrela from Portugal.
Dear President, dear colleagues, I welcome this report and congratulate the rapporteur for addressing one of the defining challenges of our time. Artificial intelligence should not be deemed as an enemy of democracy, but without effective democratic governance and regulation, it could be a dangerous tool. Democracy must therefore ensure that AI is developed and deployed in ways that strengthen, not weaken, democratic institutions and fundamental rights. Artificial intelligence offers opportunities, but it also presents serious risks for democracy. The greatest danger is not that machines become more powerful than human beings. The greatest danger is that political and democratic institutions become weaker than those who control these technologies. AI can amplify disinformation, facilitate manipulation, enable mass surveillance, and undermine trust in democratic processes. Yet the challenge before us is not merely technological, it is fundamentally political. Recent tensions between Anthropic and the United States government remind us that the key question is not only what AI can do, but who controls it, under what rules, and in whose interests. In this encyclical Magnificat Humanitas, Pope Leo XIV warns that technological progress must always remain at the service of human person and the common good. This is a message that transcends religious belief. Our challenge is clear: to ensure that artificial intelligence strengthens democracy there rather than weak. Thank you very much.
The next one on the list is Nadejda Jordanova from Bulgaria.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam Minister, colleagues. First, I would like to congratulate Madam Bergamini on her excellent and timely report on the challenges that artificial intelligence poses to democracy. Artificial intelligence is transforming our society at an extraordinary pace. As Madam Minister Kallas says, it is an accelerator. Its impact will be felt across every area of our lives, from education and healthcare to public administration and political participation. The real question is not about technology, it's about the choices we make. It is not whether AI will shape our future, but whether we will ensure that it develops in line with our democratic values. This report highlights both opportunities, and the risks. On the one hand, AI can strengthen democracy. It can improve access to information and public services, help citizens better understand complex issues, and support greater participation in democratic life. On the other hand, the risks are serious. AI-driven disinformation, deepfakes, automated propaganda, LM poisoning, and highly targeted political manipulation can undermine elections, distort public debate, and erode trust in democratic institutions. When citizens can no longer distinguish fact from fabrication, democracy itself is endangered. That is why inaction is not an option. Innovation must go hand in hand with democratic oversight. Technology must serve citizens, not manipulate them. This report also underlines Europe's responsibility. We should not simply regulate technologies developed elsewhere. We must help shape the future of AI by promoting a model that is both innovative and firmly rooted in democracy, human rights, and human dignity. Colleagues, it is not choice between innovation and democracy. Our task is to ensure that innovation strengthens democracy. Thank you.
I thank you very much. And now Edward Lee is the next on my speaking list from United Kingdom.
Madam President, before this debate started, like others, I asked AI to write my speech. And I have to say, it was not full of far-right hatred. It was sort of full of this little boring, consensual, liberal, socialist rubbish that we hear from this assembly all along. AI is no threat to democracy. We've heard all this about new technology again and again. There's an expression in English, Luddite. You know, when the steam engine was introduced in England in the early 19th century, the Luddites said it was going to destroy jobs. It never did. There was Malthus who said that overpopulation was going to destroy the world. It never did. When the motor car was introduced in Britain in the 1890s, you had to, by law, had to go ahead of it with a red flag, and you could only go at walking pace. So AI in itself is no threat. Of course, you can spend all your day reading horrible stuff on social media. You just don't do it. AI, as a colleague said to me earlier today, is like electricity is everywhere. Of course, electricity can be used in a horrible way. It can be used to electrocute people, but we all rely on electricity. It's all pervasive. You know, be confident in yourself. New technology, AI, is not a threat to democracy. And there we have Brussels, of course, typical Brussels, new regulation, strangling innovation. We're not doing this in the UK. We've got a far lighter touch. The AI companies are, of course, coming to Great Britain now. So just have confidence. We have to move with the times. AI, there were tyrants in Europe long before AI. There were horrible people, fascists, communists in the 20th century who introduced mass surveillance, who persecuted people. None of these people needed AI. Putin doesn't need AI. He may use AI. The Ayatollahs don't need AI. They may use AI. What will defeat fascism, communism, hatred is ourselves and having confidence in ourselves and being transparent and have governments that actually do what the people want. Our Prime Minister has just resigned, not because he was driven by AI, but because he was weak. Listen to the people on immigration, on all these issues.
Thank you very much.
And then we won't be...
Next on the speaking list is Georgios Psychokokis from Greece.
Thank you, Madam President, and special thanks to the rapporteur for this important report. Dear colleagues, AI is no longer a distant technological development. It is already shaping the way citizens receive information, public debate is organized, political messages are targeted, and ultimately, and most significantly, the way that trust on democratic institutions is either strengthened or undermined. Teachers used to say that it's the first time in human history that AI can create and produce narration and not just information. But our task should not be to demonize artificial intelligence. Technology in itself is not the enemy of democracy. But this can only happen if democratic societies remain in control of the rules. Because democracy is not simply about the moment of voting. Democracy depends on the ability of citizens to form their opinions freely, to access reliable information, to participate in public debate through submitting their proposals demanding their rights and protesting, and of course to hold power accountable. Council of Europe has to play a leading role in this consent, because our starting point is not the market dominance or geopolitical competition. Our starting point is human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. And the question is not whether AI will change democracy, it already does. The question is how democracy must not adapt passively to artificial intelligence, and how AI must be shaped in order to serve and deepen our democracy and values. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next call, Ivan Račan from Croatia.
Thank you. Colleagues, this resolution merits strong commendation for its objective approach to technology governance. The text systematically avoids fatalism and scaremongering, explicitly refusing to demonize artificial intelligence. Instead, it provides a well-balanced, forward-looking framework that recognizes human choices will determine our societal trajectory. The report accurately identifies how AI can serve as a structural asset, highlighting its capacity to enhance public participation, streamline public administration, and protect human rights. However, though it is a good forward-looking framework that I support, there are areas it does not address. Because of time, I will talk only about the operational enforcement gap with transnational tech corporations. The text outlines necessary mandates for corporate accountability and antitrust scrutiny to prevent dangerous concentrations of power. Yet, it lacks a realistic mechanism for extraterritorial enforcement. Because cutting-edge AI developments and computing infrastructures are heavily concentrated within the United States and China, sovereign European states face severe jurisdictional barriers. Regional treaties do not possess direct punitive or regulatory leverage over these borderless multi-billion-dollar foreign entities. Relying on the eventual formation of a global multilateral body to bridge this gap underestimates the current power imbalance between private tech giants and individual nations. Without concrete, functional mechanisms to compel compliance across borders, the report's finest accountability measures risk remaining purely aspirational. To truly protect democracy, we must address this enforcement gap directly, moving from localized regulation to enforceable transnational leverage. Thank you.
Sorry, technical problem. The next speaker is Mr. Takoy. You have the floor.
Distinguished members, artificial intelligence is rapidly transforming our societies. It offers tremendous opportunities to improve public services, in strengthening citizens' participation, support economic growth, and enhance evidence-based policymaking. As the report rightly argues, highlights, AI may become one of the most transformative developments in human history. However, technological innovation is advancing faster than our ability to fully understand, regulate, and govern its consequences. The question before us is therefore not whether artificial intelligence should be used, but how it can be governed in a way that protects democratic institutions and fundamental rights, safeguards human rights, and the rule of law. The greatest threat does not stem from artificial intelligence itself, but from its misuse. AI-powered disinformation campaigns, deepfakes, synthetic media, and sophisticated micro-targeting techniques can influence public opinion on an unprecedented scale. They can distort political debate, undermine trust in democratic institutions, and interfere with democratic process. For this reason, democratic oversight must accompany artificial intelligence throughout. its life cycle. Transparency, accountability, explainability, and meaningful human oversight must remain fundamental principles of AI governance. At the same time, we would avoid approaching artificial intelligence solely through the lens of risk, with appropriate safeguards in place. AI can become a powerful tool for strengthening democratic participation, improving public services, and enhancing access to information. Europe must therefore pursue a balanced approach that addresses risk while encouraging innovation and technological process. Our responsibility is clear: to ensure that technological process remains guided by democracy, human rights, the rule of law, and human dignity. If we succeed, artificial intelligence can become a powerful tool for strengthening democratic resilience and public trust. Thank you.
And I now call Madame Dallas. You have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Chers collègues, l'intelligence artificielle constitue l'une des ruptures technologiques majeures de notre époque. Les avancées ne doivent pas nous faire oublier les risques que l'intelligence artificielle fait peser sur nos démocraties. En France, une étude menée lors du premier tour des élections législatives, les dernières, a mis en évidence que 16% des Français sondés se sont remis à des agents conversationnels pour choisir leur candidat. Chez les 18-24 ans, ce chiffre monte à 22%. Ces chiffres doivent nous alerter sur l'enjeu que représente l'intelligence artificielle, sur l'accès à une information factuelle, fiable et plurielle. C'est la condition même du débat démocratique. L'un des dangers les plus préoccupants est sans doute la manipulation de l'information. Grâce à l'intelligence artificielle, la création et la diffusion de fausses informations, de contenus trompeurs ou de vidéos falsifiées peuvent se faire à une vitesse et à une échelle inédites. Les intelligences artificielles ne renvoient pas vers des sites comme le font les moteurs de recherche. Elles offrent des réponses structurées qui s'appuient sur des contenus déjà publiés, utilisés sans que leurs auteurs ne soient rémunérés, et sans validation professionnelle ou éthique comme les articles de presse. Cette méthode fragilise le débat public et complique l'accès des citoyens à une information fiable. Nous devons également rester vigilants face au risque de voir se développer des outils de surveillance de masse susceptibles de porter atteinte aux libertés individuelles et au respect de la vie privée, plus largement à nos droits fondamentaux. Face à l'évolution sans précédent de cette technologie, la régulation doit être réactive et efficace. L'innovation ne doit pas se faire au détriment de la démocratie, elle doit être encadrée selon le respect des droits humains et de nos valeurs démocratiques. C'est à cette condition que l'intelligence artificielle demeurera un progrès au service de nos sociétés et de nos citoyens. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, and I now call on Lord Griffiths. You have the floor.
Thank you, President and colleagues. I'm pretty sure I'm the oldest man in the room. I have a role to play in certain committees as the oldest person. And I had wondered whether to come or not to this session of PACE in view of my age and the heat. I did come. I'm glad I came. And I'm glad I was here to hear Madam Callas. She must not be allowed to leave without my having a copy of the speech that she gave. And the key item in it that gladdened my heart was the whole idea that all the worries that have been expressed are true. All the Luddite accusations from the back row, I look forward to seeing you later, Edward, are also true. But we must look at it as a challenge in our educational systems to maintain the possibility of people reflecting, analyzing, considering, weighing up, and then advising. That's what the danger is. If we don't do that, the machines will do it for us. So thank you so much for giving us that to feed upon. One other word I'd say before sitting down, 2 minutes for a Welshman is too short. It is simply that having been engaged in the British Parliament with a piece of legislation called the Online Safety Act, it took 5 years of worrying our way through the details. By the time it got on the statute book, the technology was no longer where it was 5 years previously when we legislation is a heavy old tool for dealing with the questions that we've got to deal with. But I'm a happy man now. Thank you, Madam Callas.
Thank you, Leslie. And then I call Ms. Nieminen. You have the floor.
Mr. President, dear colleagues, artificial intelligence is one of the most significant technological developments of our time. It has enormous potential to improve our economic, public service, education, and everyday life. Used responsibly, AI can help solve many of the challenges of our societies face. At the same time, we must be aware of its risks. Democracy depends on trust. People must be able to trust the information they receive and make decisions based on facts. AI can create highly realistic fake videos, images, and speeches. As deepfake technology developments, disinformation becomes easier and cheaper to spread. This is not only a technological challenge, it is also a security challenge. AI is increasingly being used as a tool for influence operations with the potential to affect elections, public debate, and democratic institutions. This is not only, that is why Europe must act. We need AI rules that protect citizens and democracy while still encouraging innovation and economic growth. We need transparency, accountability, and effective ways to respond to harmful use of AI. At the same time, we must strengthen media literacy and critical thinking. An informed citizen is the best defense against disinformation. Finally, Europe must invest in digital skills, research, innovation, and security technology and infrastructure. If we want to protect our values and remain competitive, we must help shape the future of AI, not simply follow others. Our goal should be clear. Artificial intelligence should be our servant, not our master. Thank you.
And I now call Ms. Bastos. You have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, chers collègues. La démocratie est le gouvernement des citoyens fondé sur la liberté, le pluralisme et la capacité de chacun se forger librement sa propre opinion. Aujourd'hui, nous avons déjà des doutes quant à la réalité et à la véracité de ces principes. Mais que sera la démocratie dans quelques années si l'intelligence artificielle se développe elle-même sans contrôle effectif de l'être humain? Anthropic elle-même, l'une des entreprises les plus avancées dans le développement de l'intelligence artificielle, a mis en garde contre les dangers d'une accélération incontrôlée de cette technologie et est appelée à une pause afin que l'humanité ait le temps de comprendre et de réglementer ces systèmes. Le rapport de Madame Deborah Bergamini, dont nous débattons et que je salue, met lui aussi en lumière des risques concrets. La désinformation, les deepfakers, la manipulation électorale, l'utilisation abusive des données personnelles et la perte de confiance dans les institutions démocratiques. Mais ce rapport montre des voies à suivre. Renforcer la supervision démocratique de l'intelligence artificielle, exiger la transparence et la responsabilité, investir dans l'éducation pour promouvoir la coopération internationale. Le pape Léon XIV affirme avec sagesse dans son encyclique Magnificat Humanitas que la technologie doit rester au service de la personne humaine et ne jamais la dominer. Merci.
Thank you. And now it is Mr. Holovnia. But before you take the floor, as you have not submitted your declaration on interests, I need to have you to make an oral declaration on your interests.
Thank you so much, Mr. President, dear colleagues. Of course that democracy and artificial intelligence are interconnected.
Sorry, Mr. Holovnia, you have not
yeah, because it's my
put
first
in
time
your
here,
interest of declaration or your declaration of interest, so you have to make an oral statement on that before you can be allowed to speak to
all
our
right,
rules.
all right, because I hadn't a chance to fulfill all the papers, I know. So what is this declaration? That I have no conflicts of interest in this matter. Is it okay?
He has no interest. You have no interest. Thank you.
Okay. So, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to point out another dimension of interconnection between artificial intelligence and democracy. In our very polarized societies, when the heat will be going on and the shouting will be louder and louder, people will definitely switch off from the public debate. And what will they do? They will ask ChatGPT, who should I vote for? And ChatGPT will be giving them instructions or advices based on the source of knowledge artificial intelligence is gathering day by day. You know, Poland is under cognitive war declared for us from Russia 10 years ago. Right now, what Russians are doing, they are establishing new news outlets which are producing thousands of news, of fake news, of Russian propaganda every day, every week, week after week. So all the chat GPTs and all the models, they are learning how the world works based on this poison source. They are not poisoning the bottled water. They are poisoning the source of its water, and we should be aware of this fact. Of course, we have some safeguards in the systems, in the models, who should protect us from this huge bias they can make, and the other players as well can make to our democracies. But it should be countered. It should be noticed in the regulations, in the legislation we are making, in declarations made here and in our national parliaments. Ladies and gentlemen, of course there is no reason to be aware of artificial intelligence, but we cannot let artificial intelligence to conquer our real world. Thank you so much, and sorry for this for misunderstanding at the very beginning. It's, as I said, my first time here, so I promise it will be better next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
I now call Mr. Pavic. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President, dear colleagues. I would first like to thank to Rapporteur Ms. Bergamini, and the report correctly highlights the growing risk that artificial intelligence can pose to democratic processes. However, we should avoid, and the report correctly avoids, portraying artificial intelligence only as a threat. The report wisely recognized that AI can also strengthen democracy, improve public services, increase citizens' participation, and enhance protection of human rights. In 2024, we had Convention of AI from this Council of Europe. We have also EU AI Act. One regulates the protection of human rights, the other regulates technology. However, regulation alone is not enough. We must pay particular attention to vulnerable groups. I've seen senior citizens. My father almost bought some stocks because of prominent figures' deep-fake commercials. Fortunately, he did not. He has younger children, but this is especially vulnerable groups. As former Minister of Labour in Croatia, I have seen how technological change can reshape labour market. AI will profoundly change labour market, and we for sure will need to redefine economic model. In Croatia, we are preparing a national plan and action plan for development on artificial intelligence. We also are proud that we supported civil society to educate 2,500 primary school teachers to work with children on how to use AI. So we need to also embrace AI into schools, into education, because it already is there. One of the greatest challenges we face is a mismatch between the speed of technological development and the speed which our institutions, organizations, and societies adapt. Our response should not be only to slow innovation. Our response should be to accelerate learning. Thank you very much.
And the next speaker is Ms. Vukovic-Kuc. You have the floor.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, the European Parliament has delivered a very clear message to my country in its report on Montenegro. Threats to our democracy no longer come only across borders. They also come through informations, narratives, algorithms, and networks of influence. As the next member of the EU, Montenegro must understand that modern battles for sovereignty are no longer fought on with armies and weapons. They are also fought through disinformation, through the political instrumentalizations of religion institutions, through media, and we must fight against that. That's why it's very important that the European Parliament identifies the malign influence of Russia, China, and Serbia as a challenge to Montenegro's democratic institutions, social cohesion, and strategic orientation towards the EU. What makes these influence particularly dangerous is that they are rarely exercised through force. They are exercised through soft power, through cultural, religious, and identity-based narratives, through attempts to present ethnic belonging as political destiny, through concepts that promote ethnic integration instead of European integration. Montenegro's response must be very strong. Our response must be resilience. Resilient institutions capable of protecting the information space. Resilient media that remain independent and professional, and education system that strengthens critical thinking. Because sovereignty today is not merely the control of territory. Sovereignty is the ability of a nation to shape its own political future free from external direction and hidden centers of influence. Thank you.
And I now call Mr. Sanchez Garcia. You have the floor. Not here? Yes, there.
Gracias, señor presidente. Bueno, esta iniciativa verdaderamente constituye una paradoja si nos atenemos a los puntos de vista del llamado progresismo europeo, que incluye en estos momentos y hace ya muchos años a gran parte del Partido Popular, a saber, el mito del progreso, que es un mito ilustrado del que beben y se nutren esas corrientes ideológicas, se asusta ante la realidad de un último progreso técnico como es el de la inteligencia artificial. No acabamos de entender esto, pero en fin, lo cierto es que se asustan y prueba de ello es este proyecto de resolución. Ahora, cabe preguntarse por qué tienen miedo y miedo de qué. El número 3 del proyecto de resolución dice expresamente, y lo agradecemos, que la inteligencia artificial puede facilitar la participación en los procesos democráticos. y ya era posible esa facilidad mediante Internet, hasta el punto de que la facilidad es tal que hoy verdaderamente es posible la democracia directa en todos y cada uno de los Estados miembros del Consejo. Aquí empezamos a entender el miedo que tienen, porque si la democracia directa es posible, también será posible que acabe la democracia representativa y, por lo tanto, que acaben los partidos políticos. Y esto no le gusta al establishment, evidentemente. Bien, el proyecto de la resolución, por lo tanto, abandona este inicial reconocimiento de alguna ventaja y dice que la inteligencia artificial presenta todos los problemas que nos vienen contando en los últimos años acerca de las redes sociales, la desinformación, el discurso del odio y, por consiguiente, la necesidad de control. Control que estos grupos ideológicos del establishment pretenden atribuir al Poder Ejecutivo, sea de los Estados nacionales, sea de la Comisión Europea en el caso de la Unión Europea, y, por lo tanto, en directa lesión del principio de separación de poderes. No hay control de contenidos que pueda ser atribuido en un régimen democrático.
Thank you. And the next speaker will be Mr. O'Reilly. You have the floor. Mr. O'Reilly is not present. Then the next speaker will be Ms. Vasylenko.
Thank you, President, dear colleagues. Dear Deborah Bergamini, as a rapporteur, I thank you personally for this report. It's very timely and on a very important topic for national security, but also for the security of our future generation, of our children. And I think we should all thank Ms. Deborah Bergamini as parents here, because she put in some very core things in this report that will help ensure that our children, the future of our countries, grow up with a base for strengthening the democratic societies in which they live in today. What makes this report particularly important is that it recognizes AI not simply as a technological challenge, but as a challenge to democracy, security, and human rights. It outlines not the scenarios of the now, but the scenarios in which we need to look into the future. Ukraine, the same as Poland, sees them every day. Russia's state-sponsored actors are increasing combined cyber operations, disinformation, and artificial intelligence to undermine democratic societies and trust in public institutions. In the first 6 months of 2025 alone, Ukraine processed more than 3,000 cyber incidents. And this is not the end of it. These cases grow. Officially, Russia spends nearly $2 billion a year on propaganda, but in fact, billions more are injected into the growth of the disinformation machine through AI tools in particular. Europe is investing just a mere fraction of that, and this means, colleagues, that we are losing the balance here. This becomes especially apparent if we observe the effect of AI and how it is shaping the minds of tomorrow. Technology has made it easier to target children. They become victims of grooming, manipulation, propaganda, and even military recruitment. According to Ukraine's security service, 22% of individuals recruited by Russian intelligence for sabotage and terrorist activities inside Ukraine are minors, under 18s. Russian operatives recruit them through social media, gaming platforms, and messaging applications, often using specially trained automated agents. And this is why, colleagues, I call on you to begin looking closer at the legislation which we pass at national level, but it needs to be a collective effort that we all need to exercise, not just at EU level, but at all level of countries of the Council of Europe. Thank you.
And the next speaker is Mr. Lindberg. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, dear colleagues. I would like to begin by thanking the rapporteur for a very good report. We are indeed in the midst of technological development that we have not seen for a very long time, if ever. Artificial intelligence is rapidly transforming our societies and holds great opportunities, but also significant risks for our democracies. The question is not whether we should use AI or not, but rather how. If used properly, AI can strengthen democracy and improve access to information, but without clear frameworks, it risks doing the opposite. We can already see how AI can be used for disinformation, manipulation, and surveillance. Deepfakes and automated campaigns can influence political debates and elections. This threatens trust, which are the very foundation of our European democracies. At a time when the line between truth and falsehood is becoming increasingly blurred, people need the tools to understand and critically assess information. We must dare to discuss the future. The development of increasingly advanced AI systems raises questions about control and responsibility. And these are not questions that tech companies should answer, but questions that we should answer, that require political courage and clear positions. So once again, thank you for an important report.
Thank you. And next I will call Mr. Kalamatianos, who will be the last speaker for this debate for this sitting, but we will continue the debate at 3:30 this afternoon. But Mr. Kalamatianos, you have the floor. Not present, then it will be Ms. Vesaite.
President, AI should not be demonized. It's only a tool if properly used. Digital technologies, including AI, offer unprecedented opportunities for human development and innovation, with the potential to generate social and economic benefits. However, ownership of data sets coupled with control over the most powerful AI system can lead to dangerous concentration of power in the hands of big corporations and authoritarian regimes, especially in the absence of proper oversight. Yet, they also present risks for human dignity, autonomy, and privacy, including through ongoing use of AI systems for repressive and authoritarian purposes. Therefore, it is necessary to ensure that potential risks, fundamental principles of non-discrimination, transparency, and legitimacy are applied globally when digital technologies, including AI, are designed, developed, and then eventually used in ways that promote respect for human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. In this regard, I encourage states to sign and ratify Vilnius Convention, the Council of Europe Framework Convention on Artificial Intelligence and Human Rights, Democracy, and Rule of Law. Recently, the United States obliged Anthropic to ban foreign citizens from using the company's US AI models. The US AI's export ban is an unexpected decision for Europe. Colleagues, does this mean that the AI war has already begun? It highlighted the need to look more urgently for European AI alternatives. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the last business before lunch is to consider the change proposals in the membership of committees, and these are set out in document Commissions 08 at 2. Are the proposed changes in the membership of committees agreed to? They are agreed to. So the Assembly will hold its next public sitting later today at 3:30 p.m. with the agenda approved on Monday. The sitting is adjourned.